It cannot be the case that a president of the United States can attempt to overturn an election and seize power, and that our justice system is incapable of holding a trial, of holding him to account before the next election.
I have a question. What the hell happened on January the 7th? I mean, the day after January the 6th, many Americans thought, well, that's the end of Trump. I mean, surely now Republicans will stand up and say, he's a dangerous sociopath, a clear and present danger, a mentally ill octogenarian with the load in his pants and the nuclear football under his arm, clearly out of control. Surely they will, right? Right?
Rhino Paul Ryan, Mitt the Loser Romney, Bill No Guts or No Talent Bar, and some broken political investors that will soon come to me, as most others already have.
Those elected officials who know the danger that he poses, who know that what he's saying is a lie, who know that he threatens fundamentally our democratic system, but yet have enabled him and have gone along, they will be judged very harshly by history.
I think Liz Cheney is onto something here. And even more to her point, were these people ever Republicans, and one step further, ever Americans?
The Republicans, after the January 6th attacks, there were a couple of weeks where we were really unified, and everybody seemed to understand and recognize the need to reject what had happened, to reject Donald Trump, and to move forward. But as soon as Kevin McCarthy went to Mar-a-Lago, sort of welcomed Trump back into the fold.
But as Cheney notes, this didn't last long. Why? Well, look at the evolution of this pimply little prick, egging on the crowd, then scurrying his cowardly ass out the door. Today, he joins Republicans who deny this ever happened because it really wasn't MAGA, but instead it was the FBI or BLM or Antifa.
How many of those troublemakers were actually Antifa intentional?
Exactly.
That's what I wanted to troublemakers.
Yeah, exactly. When Ted Cruz went from this,
Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone,
to this,
Donald Trump will be overwhelmingly reelected,
we thought, well, that makes sense. Cruz is a jellyfish who stands for nothing and threw his wife under the bus to save his political ass. But there are some people, and yes, a lot of Republicans, who not only stand up to Trump, but are trying to convince their tribe that this is an opportunity to show blue dog Democrats we are not the party of Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham.
I am for Trump.
But instead, we are a party that stands with America.
You said in the starkest terms, we will be voting on whether to preserve our republic in the next election. You think this is a vote about whether or not we still have democracy in this country?
It certainly is.
Now, some of you may say, why are we listening to Liz Cheney? I mean, she voted with Trump 94% of the time. She's pro-life, anti-woman, anti-gay, anti-trans Republican. She's everything we hate. And to that I say, that's exactly why she's so important. The demanding policy issues of our times, from abortion to Social Security, were always the product, a combination of anger and disgust and compromise. So I find no irony in the fact that Liz Cheney is now our ally, because this isn't about politics anymore. This is about survival.
And Donald Trump has told us exactly what he will do. He will not abide by the rulings of the courts. He will certainly appoint people to office, whether or not they can be confirmed by the Senate. He has talked about using the military in terms that really are fundamentally un-American, including here in the United States. So it's a very dangerous moment, and it's a moment for people to understand that cannot be the path.
And if anybody knows the repercussions of Donald Trump, Cheney would. Before standing up to Trump, she had the ear of conservative America. But unlike her colleagues who saw Trump as a means to an end, she simply saw him as the end of democracy, the end of civil discourse, and if he wins, possibly the end of America. And it's not like she's making this up. Trump says it out loud.
I want to be a dictator.
By the time our term is over in 16 years,
12 more years, 16 more years. President for life, that sounds good.
Now the Cheney effect is starting to gain some traction. This is a crowd from a recent Liz Cheney appearance in Iowa. Is it possible her message is reaching conservatives? And are they beginning to reject Trump? Well, yes and no. No to those lifelong Republicans who would rather vote for a bulging hemorrhoid than a Democrat. So that's their current plan. But for the rest, they see what Cheney sees. Trump will do everything he can this fall to win, including pushing states with Republican legislatures to reject a Biden victory and replace those electors with Trump supporters. And the Federalist Society that we call the Supreme Court might have enough votes to allow that unimaginable scenario to occur. Your votes stolen by the Republican Party.
Do you think it would be better for Democrats to regain control of Congress in 2024?
I think that this is a moment where a couple of things are really important. One is, as we talked about, Mike Johnson and the Republicans cannot be in the majority in January of 2025. The House of Representatives may well be called on to determine the outcome of an election if it's thrown into the House.
I mean, this is just crazy stuff. You're Liz Cheney. Right. You were previously known as one of the most conservative members of Congress. You're the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, and you're saying it would be safer for the country if Republicans weren't in control of the House.
I think what we have seen is that you cannot count on this group of elected Republicans to uphold their oaths to the Constitution.
The border bill probably best exemplifies the current state of the GOP. They claim to care about border security so much, they sent out Betty Buttermilk to spread lies about sex trafficking in Biden, simply to win a position from which they'll never address those issues again. To that point, Obama and Biden have deported more undocumented Americans than Trump ever did. And the only wall he ever built was between him and values and morals and human decency. But the border bill drafted by conservative Republican senators never got a vote in the House because Trump wanted the issue to campaign on. Think about that. There's not a single scenario where I would ever vote for Liz Cheney, but I believe she, right now, just might be the most important political figure in the country. Why? Because old school Republicans aren't going to listen to the likes of me, and they shouldn't. I believe the Republican Party is broken beyond repair, a metaphorical key bridge. But unlike that tragedy, the Republican Party was brought down by a sociopath that they invited in and thought they could control.
Well, yesterday, the network dropped her after just one appearance.
Now, NBC has been criticized for hiring and firing Ronna McDaniel. And on both points, you could say the criticism was right. First, allowing her to lie about the election, the insurrection, and Trump's attack on Americans is an obscenity and violates the viewers' trust in MSNBC's promise to be truthful and transparent. But even though the NBC executive who hired her was a Trump supporter and has since been fired, allowing McDaniel to go on the air with MSNBC staffers who could openly refute her lies may not have been the worst idea in the world. I've been on Fox a dozen times and never flinched because the truth was always on my side. These are people standing up against the kind of violence that you're promulgating.
For chaos and anarchy, Jeffrey.
This is in the left. Violence is in the DNA of the American left and always has been.
You're high. The old adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I believe is a short-sighted ideology and is anathema to our core values and truth. For sure, I don't want two enemies, but I also want my integrity intact. The Liz Cheneys of the world are few, but extremely important. Like the women who stood up to Bill Clinton after Monica were outliers, but I applauded them. As I applauded Barbara Lee when she was the sole vote out of the entire House against the Iraq War. That is the message that needs saying, that we are better than this, that we can take from this nightmare a dream that America can both be empathetic but strong, firm but reasonable, wise enough to disagree without killing each other, and smart enough to listen to voices we might not always agree with, but nonetheless can be true. Now, Liz Cheney has to get to work, cloning herself.
Time to pack it up.
You can't let that happen to me.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Who's with me? This isn't their Republican Party anymore.
Am I wrong?
Damn right.
Yes.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
Follow, like, and hit notifications as Really American keeps you up to date on the latest Republican cult lie in this very important year. For Really American,
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.